Alright dudes, let's talk about even more tips, tricks, and mistakes to avoid in Black Myth Wukong. After so much time playing, I'm still finding new things that I didn't know were possible before. So without further ado, let's jump right in. At number 1, this huge mistake will make you lose a lot of resources, will, and potentially even lose out your best weapon. And I discovered this by accident when testing out all the weapons in the game. Basically, if you go back down the weapon tree and create previously unlocked weapons, this is going to override whichever weapon is currently unlocked in that tree. And this also works, by the way, for the best ones unlocked. Let me give you an example. Let's say you already got the mythical golden longstaff, but maybe you want to test out some of the weapons that came before it, like the epics in the tree above. If you go ahead and craft any of those, this is going to completely override that golden longstaff, which means you just lost a mythical until you craft it again. And you guessed it, all of this is going to cost the same resources once again. So you're going to lose out on a lot of refined iron sand, will, and potentially even higher grade materials as you go into the higher end stuff later down the line. Fortunately enough, the boss drops are not going to be consumed, so stuff like the mountain shaking claw or the tendons will still remain in your inventory to craft it later, but just keep in mind you can lose out on a ton of the consumables and will as you perform this more often. At number 2, did you know there's actually a double jump mechanic in Black Myth Wukong? I'm not even kidding, you can actually pull this off by just jumping once and immediately following up with a heavy attack, which is going to cause Wukong to do one more flip before following up with a smash into the ground. But this can actually be very useful if you have high enough places with inaccessible loots, and there are many locations in which the game places upgrades you can only reach that way. It took me like 100 hours before I even realized this, but I'm glad I did because it just makes exploration a lot better. At number 3, do not hoard all of the pieces of gold in your inventory. They don't really have any use except for being sold for will at any vendor. I actually finished the game entirely before I even realized they don't really have any use, and I kept them thinking that they might become useful later down the line, maybe in some kind of crafting. But no, you don't really do anything with them, you just sell them at vendors and you're going to get some will out of it. If you did not at all, chances are that you have hundreds of these, which is going to give you tons of will necessary to do a bunch of upgrades. Except for the rice cocoons, do not sell those. These are very important and I'm going to show you for what. Also, if you enjoyed this video up until now, a sub to the channel would be amazing, because this is going to unlock a very strong spirit called the Proto Armor Worm, which is the best in the game at applying poison on multiple targets. So you get this at Chapter 4, Webbed Hollow, the Verger Bridge Keeper Shrine right here, heading over past the bridge nearby, and then to your left side, here is where you will encounter the Elder Armor Worm that you have to defeat. Now this is going to drop a special item that you then have to bring back at Zodiac Village and give it to Qianlong right here. And once that's done, you're going to have to feed it 3 times before it grows, and for that you're going to need 3 rice cocoons. So you get these as a rare drop from the many cocoons you find in the Webbed Hollow, though I recommend this waypoint right here. There are many nearby as well as an adjacent path downwards that you can use. Destroy them up until you get 3 of those rice cocoons. Once that's done, go ahead and feed the Proto Armor Worm in the vase very close to Qianlong back at the Zodiac Village. Every time you feed it, you have to go back at the waypoint, rest, and then go back to feed it again. Rinse and repeat 3 times, and on your 4th encounter, you're going to see the spirit, now absorbable, so go ahead and collect it. This is going to be an epic quality summon. It gives you extra critical hit chance when in a poison state, plus its attack is really great. It just spreads a lot of poison stuff on the ground, which is going to make it much easier for you to apply poison debuff on enemies. This works really great if you're going especially with that Mantis armor build and using some of the spider weapons that you got from Chapter 4. Also looks really interesting, very disgusting, but very much worth it for the extra damage. At number 5, another big tip in case you want a lot more lore is to pay attention to the chapter canvases once you finish the previous chapters. If you pan your camera over them, you're going to notice a lot of interactable points, which are going to give you a lot more story and context to that specific chapter or other characters from the Chinese mythology. I think that this is a really cool thing, and it took me a whole playthrough to even realize something like this is possible. Pretty much there are multiple points you can access this way and interact with, which will give you more story context that you might be missing if you just follow the normal routes. At number 6, probably the most overlooked items in Black Myth Wukong are the Incense Trail Talisman and the Rui Scroll. You can actually use these to teleport to locations right from your inventory without having to access any Seeker Shrine. So the Incense Trail Talisman is going to instantly transmission you all the way to the previously interacted Seeker Shrine, which is very useful if you got lost or just did a farming path but want to immediately head over back and maybe do some upgrades. Meanwhile, the Rui Scroll is an instant, fast way to go to the Zodiac Village, again without ever having to interact with a Seeker Shrine. Make use of them, they are really useful, plus you can also use them oftentimes in boss battles, assuming that you want to disengage or did not want to start it in the first place. At number 7, I'm going to show you how to increase your damage by 6 times. So yes, that's 600% damage increase, and it only involves a few abilities and a spirit. So that spirit is going to be the Gore Eye Taoist, which you get in chapter 2. This is going to give you some extra mana, but it's also going to place down a staff that immediately doubles the damage if you stay close to it. Further upgrading this summon is going to further increase that range, making it pretty long, as well as increasing that damage even more. Now, if you also combine this with a fully upgraded Mythical Pilgrim set, that one is going to further double your attack, bringing it to overall 400% of what it was previously. Add in a Spellbinder fully upgraded on top of it too, and you're pretty much looking at 550 to 600% extra attack as it was normally, and combine it with Iron Staff once you reach New Game Plus, and that's going to give you over 600% very easily if you want to reach those numbers. At number 8, Will is going to be one of your most important resources. A lot of upgrading to Mythical in the later stages will cost a lot of it, so you will need hundreds of thousands if you want to go for most of the armor sets in the game, or even weapons. So here's what I recommend doing. Go ahead and, if you can already defeat enemies easily, switch back to the Deluxe Edition Folk Opera armor set. That's going to give you a 10% increase in the will that you get from defeated enemies. You can also combine this with the Gold Flora Hairpin, which is going to further provide another 10% to will gained, and you get this by just purchasing it from the Man in Stone shop once you unlocked its questline in Chapter 2. So yes, it's only a 20%, but it's going to still help a ton. Going from 530 will per one of these enemies to 600 and almost 50 is going to be a massive bump and will definitely stack up as you progress more and more in the game. At number 9, don't always pick the most obvious choices in the Relic skill tree. You can always reset these and experiment with something else, especially so with skill-specific upgrades like the Eagle Eye. So let me give you an example. Early on, I always went with the Opportune Watcher because I wanted more focus, not realizing that Eagle's Eye basically slashes half of the cooldown of your Cloud form, which is a very strong ability when fully upgraded, pretty much giving you a massive damage and critical hit chance increase when you have it fully upgraded, assuming that you have Eagle Eye. And if you just ensure that you hit the enemy with any attack during it, you're going to slash off half of that cooldown. You can further upgrade this, of course, with its skill tree and even get gear to further reduce that cooldown even more and make it more spammable. Similarly, I recommend also going with a Sound as a Bell, as this is going to provide an upgrade to the Rock Solid Deflection, giving you extra mana at the cost of narrowing that reaction window a little bit more. So this stacks with the other narrow window plus mana that you get at the end of its own skill tree, meaning that this is going to literally give you the same amount of mana, if not even a bit more, than the one you have consumed to cast Rock Solid. Meaning that as long as you have just enough mana to cast it once, you're going to always have it available in combat, and it's going to be extremely important in especially some of the harder boss challenges later down the line. Now, if you're having mana problems in Black Myth Wukong, there are only 2 items that you need. One of them is the Jade Essence and the other one is the Turtle Tear. Both of them you can get in Chapter 3. So starting with the tear, you can get it right here at the north shore of the Bitter Lake, heading over to the right side and then going past this water, following the path with a huge snake skeleton. Once you reach the back, there's going to be a bat enemy boss that you have to defeat, but once it's done, interact with the skeleton, and this is going to cause the turtle in the back to drop 1 single tear below. Go ahead below its head, grab that soak, and now you can apply it to any drink. This is going to make it so that when at full HP, using your gourd is also going to give you some extra mana. Meanwhile, for the Jade Essence, you can find it on a table very close to the Valley of Ecstasy Towers of Karma Shrine. So simply head over to the right side once again, past the old Ginseng Guai enemy over here, and you're going to notice on the side of this pillar. This is going to further regenerate mana whenever you sip from your gourd, so it's always worth it to have these two available. Moving on to number 11, did you know that Black Myth Wukong has hourly, daily, and even weekly saves, especially on the PC version, and you're going to find them straight into the games folder. And this is going to help a ton if you want to revert back, maybe in case you missed something previously, or maybe if you accidentally jumped into a new Game Plus cycle. This is in turn going to overwrite your existing save, so if you don't want to start from the very beginning, you might want to go back, and all of these saves will help a ton with that. Or if you just want to farm an item that you previously missed and there's no way to get it again. At number 12, did you know that various forms in Black Myth Wukong have very strong detransformation effects? For example, if you detransform from the Violet Hail, this is always going to cause a poison explosion that immediately creates a build-up on the enemy. It's especially useful if you go with an on-demand poison build if you want to poison all enemies. Equally, the Azure form is almost always going to jump and perform an AoE damage on the target using its burly body, very useful if you want to detransform, stun the enemy, and then follow up with regular attacks. That's why I also recommend the Might Reserve. This is going to increase the might that you retain from the transforming, so at max level that pretty much means you retain half of the might you just spent by the transforming, which is really helpful as you can then use it again in the same battle. And finally, to number 12, you can easily jump into the photo mode even on the controller. Now on the keyboard and mouse it's much easier because you can bind any key, be it the default P or a different one to jump straight into it, even in the middle of an action. But if you do it from the menu screen, you can't do that while your character is moving. However, you can on the controller if you hold down RT and options/screenshot button, which is going to immediately bring it up. It's very useful as there are many cinematic moments and cool animations in this game, and if you really want to capture them, this is the best option. And that is pretty much it with the biggest tips. Let me know down below if there's any others that I missed. In the meantime, if you enjoyed this video, a sub to the channel would be amazing, and I'll see you guys in the next one.